Scholarship of Engagement Community of Practice. And we have Prof. Hall, Emeritus Professor at Victoria University in Canada, and also the UNESCO co-chair in community-based research and social responsibility in higher education. So Prof. Hall is joining us from Victoria in Canada, and we look forward to him sharing his insights around scholarship of engagement. On the stage, we have Prof. Openjuru from Gulu University in Uganda. We have Dr. Bruce Downs from Nelson Mandela University, as well as Dr. Dwayne Boyson from University. And then Dr. Lida van Dijk from University of Limpopo. So maybe to just start off, and Prof. Hall, I'll start with you, maybe just two questions. The first is, in a Canadian context or North American context, what is the understanding of scholarship of engagement? And then Prof. Openjuru will give us his insight around scholarship of engagement from an African perspective. Over to you, Prof. Hall.
Thank you very much, Renee. Just before I start, I wanted to send a note of deep appreciation through all of you to your Vice-Chancellor for the position which Rhodes University has taken on the question of rankings. The recent news about the opting out of the global rankings game has been received by myself, by Rajesh, and I'm sure by all of us here with great admiration. And I mention this because the rankings, the phenomena of higher education rankings is an instrument which works against the principles of engagement and works against not only the scholarship of engagement, but the very principles of deepening the relationship between knowledge workers in the academy and knowledge workers in the community. And it is my hope that perhaps at a future symposium, you might convene people from other parts of the world who would also like to move beyond the rankings game to the really deeper questions of what is the social responsibility of higher education. The history of, first of all, I'll speak from the Canadian perspective. The higher education in Canada, first of all, there is no Ministry of Higher Education. All of the higher education is public, and it's all under a provincial mandate. So unlike in South Africa or in many other countries where you have national bodies which can influence the direction of higher education, in Canada, our policy making and our structures of change are provincial. This is part of the particular regional history, of Canada. I would say that the we have a tradition that began in the early 19th century, early 20th century, particularly with the University of Alberta, where in about 1903 or 1904, the University of Alberta was conceived of as a people's university. So in a newly industrializing and a newly growing society, a number of the universities took on that role to serve people. They believed that universities should serve everybody, not just the children of the middle class, but it should serve all of society. But some of the universities in Canada were created as copycats, in imitating the universities that they had come from England. So, for example, the University of Toronto is an older university and is modeled very much like an English university of the 19th century, and I would say that the University of Toronto is still a large, complex, and fairly traditionally structured university. The conversation around community university engagement and engaged scholarship is very recent in Canada. Unlike Tanzania or Uganda or Latin America or South Africa, where people, 50 years ago were grappling with the inequalities in educational access and giving validity to knowledge being created in villages and communities. In Canada, the universities assumed that they were the knowledge keepers and the knowledge makers, and they had a monopoly over knowledge creation. But that changed, and it changed in an interesting way. It can be traced in Canada to 1998. In 1998, the Research Granting Council of the Social Sciences created a window of funding called Community University Research Alliance, or CURA. And they had discovered these ideas, these principles, by doing historical work and finding that there had been work done back in the 1970s, in fact, beginning in Tanzania, called participatory research. And in the 70s and 80s, there was something called the International Participatory Research Network. And in Canada, there was something called the Participatory Research Group, which got started in the late 1970s. In Europe, in the late 1970s, you had something called the science shops. The science shops were created by postgraduate students and young progressive scholars who wanted to see their work have an impact directly in community. These two ideas, examples, stimulated the Granting Council to create a funding window which gave money only for that window only to projects which could demonstrate an equal relationship between a community scholar and a community knowledge worker and an academic scholar, or groups or teams, community university research teams. When the senior people in universities found out that there was money to be had for community engagement or the scholarship of engagement, suddenly you found the Pro-Vice-Chancellor's research, the Vice Presidents for research, the deans of the faculties interested, when they previously, for intellectual reasons, had perhaps put these kinds of ideas aside as being mere examples of community development, which didn't belong in a proper university. But once money was available and research funding was available, then the universities, the leaders in Canadian universities began to ask the question, who is doing this kind of work in our university? And in my university, which is the University of Victoria, we called a symposium at the time in 2005, and we asked the question, who is doing community-based research, or who is responding to the scholarship of engagement? And to our surprise, 120 people came to a meeting. And out of the 120 people, 2/3 of those people were women, and 2/3 of those people were untenured, were young scholars. There was an appetite by women and by young scholars to find a way of engaging in research which corresponded to their values and their desire to make a contribution to building a better, more just community. The response, the University of Victoria therefore created an office of community-based research, which I was able to found, to start up, and we then moved forward in a way which I can maybe come back to. But what I would say is from about 2005, 2006, the scholarship of engagement caught the attention of Canadian universities, and by now, by 2023, there isn't a single Canadian university that doesn't give at least lip service to the idea and tries to support, many people who are doing this kind of work. I think I'll leave. That's enough for just some opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Prof. Very interesting that funding is the main driver behind universities now really embracing scholarship of engagement. I'll hand over now to Prof. Openjuru to maybe just give us insights into the understanding of scholarship of engagement in an African context.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to thank Professor Sabat for that perspective of Canada and giving a bit of the history of community university engagement as well in Africa, given his experience in Tanzania and now Uganda, where he's a frequent visitor. Yeah, we are supposed to look at the scholarship of engagement and community and community of practice. I would like to first start by unpacking what we use interchangeably as scholarship of engagement and engaged scholarship. When we talk of scholarship of engagement, which I think is what we must now, and we are now focusing and bringing to the fore, is the deeper study of how the engagement practice should handle. Those of us in this room are scholars of engagement. In other words, doing scholarship of engagement. But at the same time, we are also engaged scholars in the sense that in addition to undertaking a deeper study of how community-university relationships should be undertaken, we as well engage in that scholarship. We work with the communities. And for these last 2 days and tomorrow, we have been doing just that, seeing the different practices that are being implemented in the different universities. And for me, that is a significant development because it begins to create an epistemology around the university community engagement agenda. That it's a development where university community relationship was seen from a service perspective. Yes. And now moving on to an academic perspective. It's becoming a discipline. And it is being emphasized to pervade all across all the disciplines and the faculties within the university. Now, in the African context, I would like to do two things. Number one, to disengage from the history of the introduction of community-university relationship in the early days when universities were being formed. I will be talking about that tomorrow. To the current practice, which is to move our communities along the trajectory of development and chart our own development course in a manner that is sustainable, in a manner that does not destroy the environment or the ecology within which we are living, like it has already been done in other parts of the world. So as universities, what are our responsibilities in doing that? And we can only achieve that through authentic engagement with our own communities, elevating the practice that has sustained these communities with their environment naturally, without one hurting the other. And I think that is what we need to enhance. But of course, in South Africa here, I know because of its history, just like Diana has been explaining, there is the element of bringing a particular group who have been marginalized for a long time and possibly bring them up to speed in development, which is not reflected in other parts of the world. So in South Africa, there is a combination of both elements of improving the other marginalized group, as well as charting a different trajectory in the development of the human life and making our contribution internationally. And it is only through that which we can salvage the world and also give our input without going in the direction that they are taking. And this agenda makes community university engagement a very core activity of African universities.
Thank you very much, Openjuru. And so I think the next discussion, we will get insights from the colleagues, University of Limpopo, Gulu University, Nelson Mandela, Roach University, as well as University of Victoria, around the challenges and opportunities for engaged scholarship at the various public universities, but within the context of decolonizing of knowledge and also promoting indigenous and everyday lived experience knowledge and bringing that within community engagement practices. So maybe I'll leave that to start with you, challenges, opportunities at University of Limpopo when it comes to scholarship of engagement.
Well, I would say, I'll start by saying I've been at 3 universities now, where we need to institutionalize community engagement as a scholarship of engagement. And all 3 universities were disadvantaged prehistoric universities. So that's where my passion lies, to work in environments where you need to work against many odds. When the advantage lies in disadvantage. You need to be very creative and get things going from often with very little resources. I am now at the University of Limpopo, where the institutional processes and management is very positive in terms of community engagement. A lot of resources are being made available to our unit. We are the Rural Development and Innovation Hub. So we need to bring about innovation in terms of research, development, and then our mandate is also to institutionalize the scholarship of community engagement. I think what's very important is to look at CHE policies that came out last year when they did the audits on universities. We've already been audited. We already got our report back, and luckily it went well with us. We were commended for the work that we did. What is the CHE saying now? In the preliminary report that they sent back to us, 67 times they mentioned the following terms: integrated scholarship of community engagement. The word integrated features everywhere. Now, if you look at the integration of the 3 core policy, of 3 core academic processes at universities, that is the most difficult process, is to teach an academic how to integrate the 3 core processes. Not because they don't know how. I've been an academic myself for 27 years, and I've managed a department which ended up with 30,000 students for 10 years at UNESCO. So I've been an academic for very long. I've got a very soft spot for academics because they don't learn these things. They don't get any training in how to integrate the 3 core academic processes that we have at university. So you need to have a lot of respect for them in teaching them, and they should know that you respect them. And what we do is to place a lot of emphasis on research. We plan the publication with the project, if there's a project. We plan the curriculum with the project. So what we do is to model the process of integration as we build relationships, go through projects, and develop or align things in different ways. All our projects are transdisciplinary in nature. We don't work with teams only in one discipline anymore. Our most successful projects and biggest projects are also transdisciplinary projects. Our academics also find that very difficult, is to move beyond boundaries, to realize that you're not going to lose anything. You're not going to lose your project, your space, or the funding. We're just going to learn to think differently, work differently, do research differently, and in the end, you share the outcomes of the publications. We also have a memorandum of agreement with academics for any publications that they have, that we are part of the publication. Because we initiate the processes, we prepare the ground, and we do a lot of groundwork for them. If they don't know how to go into a community, we go with them. If they finish their research and they need to communicate the research result back to communities, we go with them and we teach them. So that we also train them like we train our students in a scholarship of community engagement at the University of Limpopo. And that is where our emphasis lies. I'm not going to say anything that the other people have already said. I agree with many of the things they've said, but that is our emphasis. We find that it works. We get more and more academics on board, but there are challenges. To change a mindset in people is one of the most difficult things for me. To win their trust, to get them to a point where they say, I actually don't know how. Although I'm a professor, a full professor, I don't know how. That is just about building relationships and trust. And to let them know that they still deserve respect, even if they don't know. Let's just learn something new and do it in a different way and see if we can get to the same point. Thank you.
We'll go to Bruce.
Thanks, Renee. I think for us, it's a constant tension to clarify the intellectual, scholarly, and programmatic activities of engagement, because we have so much empirical material, and even we spoke earlier about vocabulary instead of speaking of data, because all our work is data. I think Denzel and Lincoln started to advance that we should move away from the term data and talk of empirical material, because even these informal engagements allow us to use information, and so I'm relatively new in the space, started last year in the engagement office. And so the engagement office primarily had an institutional function of service, not of strategic thinking in relation to how we could do things differently. And so you have a pool of different mindsets that we have to recognize, that we have to create collaborative spaces and facilitative spaces around, because we also cannot do the same mistake that we critiquing our colleagues of assuming a superior knowledge position even around this methodology of doing work. Because I think the ultimate contestation, as one of the mentors will advise, is that it's the battle for knowledge and whose knowledge matters in trying to be responsive to the many challenges that are faced locally. And again, as I mentioned this morning, I have to stand in my own contradiction again, because we're having this debate without the very knowledge workers that we work with, majority as well. And I'm guilty of that, because I did not come with delegates, someone that's outside the academy. And those are some of the tensions, I think, in reflexivity we have to be speaking about, because we cannot have the eloquence in writing, but in demonstration, we stand in contradiction. I think this weakens our arguments as we think about this work. Then in trying to bring some structure, and I think you mentioned yesterday, why don't we just do it? I was at the same level. Let's stop critiquing and having tension. And one of our mentors, Enver Motala, because he guides us in our thinking about this work very carefully. He says that, yes, you can do it and you'll die, and then what? And so we have to think very carefully about what and how we think and organize our work in ways that are not conventional, but also then speaks to the broader strategic intention. So in our endeavor to respond to our own tension on how do we start producing, and I take up the DVC's challenge this morning, the multiple forms of representation, not in the classical form of text, but in the form of expression of society. And I think when you speak of the indigenous opportunity, that is what we should be opening those spaces. And the critique is that we write mystically. We write in a way that's abstract because we would deliberately do that to keep people out of the academy. How do we start changing and it's up to us. No one else will do that. So we're really taking a position that we're not writing against anyone, but we're writing for the advancement of a methodology which we firmly believe in. And we draw, as the VC did here, is that draw a distinction then as an entry point for the exploration. And it's very tentative and it's very uncertain, because we do not want to be as certain as science has been for thousands of years and brought us to the mess that we are in. So we keep ourselves open and vulnerable even in our propositions. And the notion of the scholarship of engagement, we draw a distinction between the scholarship of engagement and engaged scholarship, and it's written into our organizing principle. With the scholarship of engagement being recognized by ourselves and the proposition is a desktop analysis of the tremendous work that has been done across the globe, including some of the histories that Prof Hall shared and as well as the VC on where this comes from. And that's a desktop, and we draw our conceptual thinking from that. And that informs. But there we are more interested in the engaged scholarship. That is the theoretical premises that are emerging by virtue of doing the work. By actually doing the work. So we can have any moment that catalyzes the work. We can have COVID-19, not going to write a research proposal, we're going to do the work. We can have a student who's interested in understanding the phenomena of this critical participatory work within an African context. It becomes a catalytic moment. So we don't want any exclusion when we do this. And I think that in conclusion, Renee, my greatest lessons have been from the engineers on humility. Because they're very straight when they meet with us. You speak too much as social scientists. You can just give us the blueprint and we will make it work. But we say, but you see, your problem is you're apolitical and acontextual. That's your problem. But they prepare to engage in the discourse. And they say, okay, you write it for us and we'll design it for you. And we say, great. Let's start a fantastic philosopher from the northern area. So let's tell what we must do in order to get the scholarship for me. Thanks, Renee.
Thank you. And that puts in with what Martina said yesterday. She's been working with engineers for such a long time and now stepping into this space now. And where it's more, we're saying more than just the basics. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
We'll carry on with Rhodes University, Dwayne.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you, colleagues. I have to acknowledge that I'm on the stage with people that I can actually learn more from than I can contribute to the discussion. My thinking and thoughts, and I want to piggyback and just latch onto what Dr. Darwin has mentioned, is within the context of being an early career academic. Started at Rhodes University in 2018, and I'm still here. That's a different discussion in terms of you are still here. I am here. I think one specific thing that I can point out is that I feel fortunate to be at a university where community engagement is so explicit. I was in a forum meeting for grant funding a few months ago and discussed the possibilities of doing research with people from across the world. And somebody approached me and asked, what is it possible to do a mental health related project within your context, within schools? And the first thing I said, absolutely yes. And I said yes because of the community engagement office and the culture and the work that's happening here. I didn't know whether it would be possible, but I just said yes because I know that there's a foundation and a basis that I benefit from. Challenges and opportunities, many, of course. And what I'm picking up is that there's a constant push and pull. So 3 important things for me is starting with the person, the academic, the scholar, the individual. What you bring and how you enter a university space and how you enter the context where you live and where you work. Your own values and your own understanding of what does it mean to be a scholar, what does it mean to be an academic. And right next to that for me is to not be easily satisfied by just publishing and just getting the opportunities that the academy offers. And what I mean by that is, okay, so now we have these findings, so what? I know this intervention or treatment or assessment or program works, so what? What's the next step? So to not be easily satisfied with what we are doing. The second layer is the system of the academy itself. As I said, feeling very fortunate to be within this university, but at the same time, there are also limitations. The one limitation that and I'll speak for myself, is from afar, community engagement is shouting. No? Here we are. But once you enter the system, you can feel certain vacuums and hollow spaces where you realize that it's up to me to actually make this work. And you take that step forward, and then you realize that you have to carry all of this by yourself, and you really have to become almost a self-sustaining thing of, pushing a certain ambition and vision, which is taxing. Drawing on personal experience last year, within my own scholarship, within my own work that I do within this university and within the city, it felt like I was doing 2 jobs. I was an employee of the university, and I was somebody outside within the community, driving back and forth, meeting with people and realizing that, yes, there are structures in place. Yes, there are many people that I can liaise with, but at the same time, you do have those moments, and at times there are very significant moments where you feel that there's something more. And I assume that there will always be a need to have, but I do think leadership, not just from the top, not just from the community engagement office, but within the staff meeting itself. From that point going forward, to create and cultivate a culture of, and to basically check in and to speak the language on a daily basis about community engagement, about engaged scholarship, and what does it mean to be an engaged scholar itself. So opportunities and challenges are plentiful, but I do believe that it starts with the individual, your own sense making of what this is, where I find myself and what I would like to do with it, and not to be easily satisfied with the basic work that we do. In addition, being outside in the field, being a clinical psychologist, being trained very specifically and finding myself in different spaces, having to navigate the politics of knowledge, not calling it data, the back and forth. Do I now abandon my training? Do I jump ship to the different side of the fence in terms of epistemological thinking? So to navigate that and to hold the tension. One specific example of working with community members within the space of trauma and mental health, I come in with my knowledge of what the literature says. And the literature says is that there's a need for access for mental health care. We've now created access to mental health care, but it's not being utilized. There's something that I'm missing. And it's been an ongoing process of informal learning, empirical material that I didn't get from literature, that I could only get from week after week after week after week after week, working with people who have a common objective and that see the value in trying to do something about it.
Thank you very much, Joanne. And then we'll finish off with Eugene on giving us some insights into University of Pretoria.
Thank you. I just want to really pick on what Prof also shared in terms of the opportunity that we have as a country in terms of having the government has been supporting community engagement in terms of what we do. And I must say, with the Alberta in particular, I had an opportunity to be a visiting researcher while I was doing my PhD and spent some time there doing research. I find them to be well supported and their work is quite in touch with the community, which is something that I feel we need to do more in terms of the work that we do here in the country. With the University of Pretoria, I must say we are one of them. I mean, I believe that full privilege and honor to have the executive being quite involved in the work that we do. The Deputy VC in particular, she's also part of the forum in terms of supporting the work and work closely with us with what we do. So it's important to have the executive not just being aloof and not knowing exactly what's happening in terms of the work that we do within academic and with our community partners. And I think, I mean, it's over a decade that we've been doing community work, and we have moved. Those of you who listened to my presentation yesterday, I said we have moved from a point where we used to speak of community engagement as a pillar in higher education. It is not in our definition. However, community engagement is embedded in teaching and learning. So whatever we do includes community engagement. Hence, we've got much happening in terms of research. For instance, we've got just over 200 modules that have community engagement. And what it means is that in all those modules, there are curricula, I mean, there's curricula, community engagement taking place. Students are accessed in all those modules. And with that, we've got over 1,000 community partners that we work with. That could be a challenge and an opportunity at the same time, in a sense that in all our sites, we make sure that we don't work with one discipline, but there's transdisciplinary researchers that are working in one particular site. And that strengthens our work and our impact in terms of what we do with our community partners. We have 3, 4, let's say, faculties working in one site. Certainly an opportunity. Of course, it has its own challenges. We've got 9 faculties as a university, hence we have to be very strategic in how we use the limited resources that we have to maximize them. Speaking of resources, in community engagement, some of the challenges are issues of finances. With us, we support our students. There's a levy that we hold in terms of supporting our students, make sure that at least they've got transport money to travel to a particular site. And then, of course, I shared yesterday about how we support them practically in terms of the work that we do. The use of language, it's important, it's critical in community engagement. How we choose the methodology and how we speak of them is important. For instance, in my research, I speak of participatory reflection action research, what many of us call, which is, it could be semantic, of course, I know, participatory action research, meaning that it's important that we constantly reflect on the work that we do. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. Some of the work has already been done, hence we need to be reflective throughout the process. We don't just implement and say we'll evaluate or reflect at the end of the process, but it's a continuous process. As we speak of a community of practice, the question is, when we form that community, who are we including? Why are we including them? And what contribution are they making? With those questions, we can also ask them, who are we excluding? Why are we excluding? What are we losing in that? I must say, I must commend Stellenbosch, but they happened to be in their presentation just now. They came with a community partner. Well done to you. I must commend them for that. Rose, unfortunately, I won't acknowledge you. I'm not sure how many of us have done that. So that's something that we need to think of. And of course, I spoke about the issues of safety in terms of challenges when we speak of decolonization in community engagement, because that's part of what we're doing in the co-creation of knowledge with our community partners. There's tension there. Some of us, we resist change as academics. So we need to wrestle with those changes and see how we can improve and work, because it's for the advantage of all of us. when we do that. So finally, let me say that the political landscape is changing, and that comes with challenges of its own to us as universities. So we need to also manage that space very well in terms of how we work with that. Yeah, so there's a lot that I can share. Maybe let me conclude with the issue of COVID-19. It was mentioned. That also is another challenge, but for us, it also caters an opportunity. Way before COVID, already we're starting to work online as UP with our students. So we have advanced in that regard, and now we've got even more projects that we implement even with our international partners without having to move geographically. So those are opportunities. In every situation of adversity, there's an equal opportunity. We just have to open our eyes and take advantage of them. I thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we run out of time, but Prof, 2 minutes maybe for you to just share your insights, and then we'll finish off with Openjuru. Maybe we can just take 1 or 2 comments at the most from the floor. Your insights?
Yes, thank you very much, Renee, and thank you, George, and all of the colleagues. I'm learning a lot. I think one challenge that we collectively need to continue to work on is related to the point which has been made by several of you around what does it mean to decolonize our universities? What does it mean to decolonize curriculum? What does it mean to decolonize ourselves? And what does decolonization mean within the context of the scholarship and of engagement? I think that if we can concentrate in the coming year or two on some of the going deeper into that question, I think it will deliver significant results. Thank you.
So that gives us another opportunity for webinars. And we invite all the colleagues and some others in the hall as well. Prof, maybe your final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you very much. Not a lot. I think we need to start the discussion and continue with it and not localize. We need to network across the continent and not only be based within institutions, must interrelate with each other, network and develop collaboration and agenda. As we work with our local communities, let us also work with our partner universities to develop the ideas that we are working on and improve ourselves in terms of becoming what I got from University of South Africa, organic scholars. Organics, not academic tourists. Academic tourists just zip into the society, collect the data, zip out, and publish it in Elsevier for the people who know nothing about whatever the data is collected. So that is what we need to do. So if we can continue with this discussion, which Rhodes is championing. The other day I was in Northwest University. I know there is such a, I don't know how activities. Let us grow the network. Let us continue the discussion. And let us strengthen the practice and mainstream it in the entire university. Just one word. At Gulu University, we don't have an organizing unit because community university engagement is a work philosophy for research, for teaching, and for bringing the community into. It's just a work philosophy. Right from the vision, mission, and motto. Maybe the motto is this: we stand for community transformation. No organizing principles. No, we are now trying to create a directory. We are trying to create a policy. So we are evolving from the actual practice into the policy. Because we were created purposely to ensure that there is peace in the community, there is development in the community, And that's what we are doing. Whether in the Faculty of Science, we do that. Faculty of Medicine, train doctors to work in village hospitals, rurally based hospitals, not in the urban center. The discourse is clear. And that is what we need to do for all our universities, but not as a small unit doing everything for every unit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Openjuru. I think since we're out of time, but I think what an amazing way to finish off organic scholars and not academic tourists. Okay, so I think I have to ask ourselves that question. So thank you very much for those deep insights. Prof. Hall, as always, thank you very, very much for sharing your insights with us. Much, much appreciated. And yes, we've run out of time. Wish we had more time, but yes. Or one comment. Otherwise, the timekeeper here is
you know, out of all the presentation, there's something that bothers me, and I think it's only fair that one speak it out. The intellectual machinery that is present here will assist in quelling that particular intervention that is observing whatever that you have been presenting here. There is that lack of synchronization between the key role players that will assist in ensuring that whatever empirical material that we produce is impactful, like engaging with the traditional leadership, your government from national level. I think if at all the process, we should have been having representation from local, so that whatever engagement that I get, they are able to assist in pushing for policy imperative where the system becomes synchronized. We will not have a problem when we are speaking about community engagement and being careful. Whereas we have a municipality that hires a consultant to assist the municipality in a particular intervention. Whereas we are having people here who can be able to assist. If that partnership can be able to exist, then a lot of social ills.
I think we'll finish it there. We absolutely agree with you. And maybe it's a discussion we can also take further over the next few days. But thank you for sharing your insight. Thank you very much. We'll now move again to the two parallel sessions. Thank you. Thank you, guys. That was lovely.